Winter used to be a season. Now it is a weapon. Because in 2026, MotoGP enters the year where balance dies, excuses expire, and only predators survive. Marc Márquez returns with bones healed, vision sharpened, and a GP26 built brutally around his instability-first, instinct-over-safety DNA. Ducati knows what he is. The paddock fears what he becomes. And every rider knows the man is still the standard of terror. But for the first time since the Honda empire collapsed in 2020, one rider stands where others fold. Marco Bezzecchi. The underdog weapon who walked into Aprilia as a borrowed blade and transformed himself into a frontline assassin. He took podiums when Aprilia wasn't ready, took victories when Martin was injured, took responsibility when nobody asked him to. And he didn't break when he accidentally took Marc out in Indonesia. He absorbed the guilt and sharpened the hunger. Now he says he must work harder to beat Marc. Not because he fears him, but because he finally understands the truth. Marc Márquez is not beaten during the season. He is beaten before the first test. So the question is simple. Has Aprilia created a rider capable of punching the sun? Picture the final laps of Valencia 2025. The track is cooling. The grandstands are trembling. And under the floodlights, two silhouettes carve the same line with two different destinies. One is the returning tyrant, the man who took a GP25 that rejected nearly every rider on the grid and turned it into a championship with 5 rounds to spare. The other is the unexpected storm, Marco Bezzecchi, the rider who walked into Aprilia to support Martin but ended up carrying the entire factory on his back when injuries and chaos swallowed their #1 rider. The season wasn't supposed to belong to him. But racing doesn't care about predictions. Racing rewards hunger. Bezzecchi's rise wasn't cinematic polish. It was scars, bruises, and late race pace that refused to die. His Portimao win was a declaration. His Silverstone win was a warning. His Valencia win was a prophecy. The grid suddenly realized Aprilia wasn't building a support system. They were building a weapon capable of slicing through Ducati's empire at a time when Pecco collapsed. Martin fractured his season, and Acosta was still learning the language of premier-class brutality. But amid all this momentum, one truth stood unshaken. Marc Márquez still cast the biggest shadow. Even after Indonesia, even after missing critical rounds, even after letting his body recover instead of forcing it into war, he remained the psychological center of the grid. Riders don't just prepare for Marc, they prepare for the idea of Marc, for his late braking, for his unpredictable lean angles, for his refusal to obey physics, for the way he changes the oxygen of every race he enters. And Bezzecchi felt it firsthand. Their battles in 2025 weren't just overtakes, they were conversations, respect laced with danger, curiosity mixed with suspicion. Two riders who didn't like each other at first but understood each other by necessity. When Bezzecchi accidentally wiped Marc out in Indonesia, it should have ended the relationship. It didn't. Marc healed. Bezzecchi apologized. They rebuilt something rare in racing, rivalry with clarity. So when Bezzecchi now says he must work physically and mentally through winter, he isn't saying it like a motivational poster. He's talking like a man who has looked directly at the one rider he must dethrone and realized the equation of war. Marc is beatable. But not if you prepare like everyone else. Because Marc doesn't return from injury. He returns with vengeance. And Aprilia knows the window is small. Ducati is wounded. Pecco is fractured emotionally. Martin is recovering. KTM is inconsistent. Yamaha is rebuilding. The GP26 will define the next era, and if Bezzecchi wants to be the rider who breaks the empire before 2027 resets the universe, he must enter Thai GP not as hope, but as hostility. Flash forward to winter. Aprilia loading data into the wind tunnel. Bezzecchi running till his lungs burn. Marc sharpening his instincts in silence. A season forming in the cold. Two riders preparing for collision. One empire, one uprising. And only one question matters now. Is Bezzecchi preparing for Marc, or transforming into something that even Marc hasn't met yet? Comment below. Winter is quiet for everyone except the ones planning to rewrite the championship. This is where Aprilia and Ducati split into two opposite philosophies of war. Ducati believes in engineering dominance first, rider adaptation second. Aprilia believes in rider instinct first, engineering refinement second. The 2026 title will be decided by which ideology breaks first. Inside No Alley, the lights stay on long after midnight. Engineers studying traction traces. Aero designers comparing Marc's 2025 brake pressure fingerprints to Bezzecchi's late-season data. They know they can't copy Ducati's power, so they're doubling down on agility, entry stability, and corner exit elasticity. Aprilia builds knives, not hammers. Bezzecchi fits that knife philosophy perfectly. His style is brutal on entry, feathered on exit, and ruthless in mid-corner direction change. Aprilia's RSGP platform gives him the flexibility Ducati never would. The bike doesn't demand stiffness or violence. It rewards flow, rhythm, instinct. And that is exactly what makes him Marc's most dangerous competitor. Because Marc doesn't struggle against riders with speed. He struggles against riders with identity. And Bezzecchi's identity sharpened in 2025. Silverstone was instinct. Portimao was judgment. Valencia was inevitability. But winter brings politics, and politics brings pressure. Aprilia has signed Fabio Quartararo for the future. Martin is the #1 plate holder. Acosta is circling 2027 like a shark. Ducati's empire is entering a psychological fracture, and KTM's volcano is ready to erupt if they fix degradation. Bezzecchi knows this. If he doesn't strike in 2026, he becomes a stepping stone in the 2027 reset. So everything now becomes urgency. His training goes from stamina to endurance. His mindset goes from confidence to obsession. His conversations with engineers shift from how do we improve to how do we break him? Because Marc isn't just a competitor. He is the gatekeeper to history. To beat him, you must neutralize his core weapons. Corner entry chaos. Marc breaks after logic, not markers. Mid-corner rotation. Ducati's aero keeps him unnaturally stable. Exit violence. GP26 torque curve will punch harder than the GP25. Psychological aggression. He forces riders into defending lines. Bezzecchi is the only rider on the 2026 grid who can fight all four fronts without losing himself. Martin gets emotional. Pecco collapses when the bike betrays him. Acosta still learns the limits. Quartararo suffocates inside Yamaha politics. Toprak waits for 2027. But Bezzecchi? He is becoming comfortable inside the fire. As the winter closes, paddock insiders whisper the question nobody expected to ask. Is Marc preparing for the season, or is he preparing for Bezzecchi? Comment below. Panax Section 3. Collapse, 450 to 480 words. The collapse isn't always a crash. Sometimes it's a shift, a moment, a crack in a rider's certainty. For Ducati, that crack was the GP25. The bike demanded aggression without feedback, chaos without intuition, domination without clarity. Pecco drowned in it. Martin never healed in time to master it. And Marc, after Indonesia, didn't get to fully exploit it. The GP25 became a psychological ghost inside the Bologna factory. But for Aprilia, the collapse of Ducati was fuel. Bezzecchi saw the empire bleed for the first time in years. He saw Pecco lose belief. He saw Martin lose stability. He saw Marc lose time. And in that moment, he realized the 2026 war wouldn't be decided by horsepower. It would be decided by timing. This is where mechanical logic enters the battlefield. Ducati's GP26 will push harder torque early in the exit phase. That improves Marc's slingshot, but it increases rear tire thermal load. Aprilia's RS-GP26 will increase aero load on initial entry. That gives Bezzecchi stability under chaos and narrower minimum speed volatility. These aren't numbers. These are psychological weapons. Marc thrives when the rear slides in predictable patterns. Bezzecchi thrives when he can steer the bike with the front. In 2026, front-end confidence beats rear-end violence at tracks like Jerez, Sachsenring, Misano, and Valencia. But here's the truth. The paddock doesn't say loudly. Marc forces riders into mistakes by making the race emotional. He changes lines, he changes tempo, he changes risk thresholds, he creates uncertainty. Riders don't collapse because Marc is faster. They collapse because Marc erodes their identity. But Bezzecchi's 2025 did something rare. It gave him an identity Marc cannot rewrite. Every podium he took came from pacing the race backward, saving tire early, killing the field late. Every victory came from reading the conditions better than riders with faster bikes. Every duel came from refusing to let fear dictate lines. So as the 2026 season approaches, there's a quiet dread forming, not around Marc, not around Ducati, but around the fact that Bezzecchi is no longer the outsider. He is Aprilia's frontline blade. He is the rider Martin never expected to fight internally. He is the rider Ducati fears if GP26 stumbles. He is the rider KTM hopes doesn't steal the spotlight before Acosta matures. And he is the rider Marc knows cannot be broken early. Winter is ending. The tracks will open. The noise will return. And somewhere between ThaiGP and Jerez, the paddock will face the truth. Is Marc Márquez still the final boss, or has Bezzecchi become the glitch in the system? Comment below. Marc is still the final boss. But Bezzecchi is the first rider since peak Lorenzo, peak Pedrosa, peak Dovizioso, and early Acosta who has the tools, mechanical, mental, tactical, to hit Marc where he is most vulnerable. Not in speed, in rhythm. Marc loses when the rhythm isn't his. Bezzecchi thrives when the rhythm is unstable. This is why winter matters. This is why Bezzecchi's vow matters. This is why Aprilia believes quietly, while Ducati debates loudly. The 2026 war is not about whether Bezzecchi can beat Marc. It's about whether Marc can stop the one rider who doesn't fear him, because he already survived the worst version of himself. And the grid knows it. From now, where does this put them? The time will tell us. Comment below. Subscribe for more savage breakdowns.